The sun was just beginning to rise over the city, casting a warm golden glow on the streets below. People were slowly waking up, preparing for another busy day ahead. Cars honked in the distance, and the faint hum of conversations filled the air as commuters made their way to work. Among them was Daniel Harper, a man who had spent years building his empire from scratch. He was the CEO of Burger Bliss, one of the fastest-growing fast food chains in the country. With its signature burgers, crispy fries, and creamy milkshakes, Burger Bliss had become a household name. But despite his success, Daniel couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing. Sitting in his sleek office with floor-to-ceiling windows, he often wondered what life was really like for the people working on the front lines of his business, the cashiers, cooks, and cleaners who kept the wheels turning. One morning, Daniel decided it was time to find out. He had heard stories about other CEOs going undercover to understand their companies better, and the idea intrigued him. What if he could walk in the shoes of his employees for a day? What would he learn about the inner workings of his chain that reports and meetings couldn't tell him? Determined to get answers, Daniel put on a plain hoodie, a pair of jeans, and sneakers. He didn't want anyone to recognize him, so he left his expensive watch and phone at home. Instead, he carried a small notebook and a pen in his pocket, ready to jot down observations. With a deep breath, he stepped out of his apartment and headed toward one of the busiest Burger Bliss locations in the city. As Daniel approached the restaurant, he noticed the familiar red and yellow sign glowing brightly against the gray morning sky. The parking lot was already filling up with cars, and a line of customers stretched out the door. Inside, the atmosphere was chaotic but energetic. The smell of sizzling beef patties and freshly baked buns wafted through the air, mingling with the sound of cash registers ringing and orders being called out. Daniel took a moment to observe the scene before stepping inside. His eyes landed on a young woman standing behind the counter. Her name tag read, Mia, and she looked exhausted. Dark circles shadowed her eyes, and her hair was tied back in a messy ponytail. Despite her tired appearance, she greeted each customer with a polite smile, punching in orders with practiced efficiency. Daniel joined the queue, trying to blend in with the crowd. When it was finally his turn, Mia glanced up briefly, her fingers hovering over the register. "What can I get for you?" she asked in a monotone voice, clearly distracted by the chaos around her. Daniel hesitated for a moment, unsure how to respond. He hadn't planned this far ahead. Finally, he decided to keep things simple. "I'll have a classic burger combo with extra fries," he said, handing over a crumpled bill. As Mia rang up his order, Daniel noticed her muttering something under her breath. Leaning slightly closer, he caught fragments of her words. "I wish they'd fixed the schedule already. It's killing us." The comment struck him like a punch to the gut. Fix the schedule? What did she mean by that? Before he could ask, Mia handed him his receipt and moved on to the next customer. Curious and concerned, Daniel stepped aside to wait for his food. He found a spot near the condiment station where he could watch Mia without drawing too much attention. From this vantage point, he saw how overwhelmed she seemed. Customers bombarded her with questions, complaints, and special requests, and she handled each one with remarkable patience. Occasionally, she would glance at the clock on the wall, her expression growing more anxious with each passing minute. At one point, a man at the front of the line snapped at her for getting his drink wrong. "Are you even paying attention?" he demanded, slamming his cup onto the counter. Mia apologized quickly, replacing the drink without argument. But Daniel could see the frustration simmering beneath her calm exterior. While waiting, Daniel also observed the rest of the staff. In the kitchen, a team of cooks worked tirelessly, flipping burgers and assembling meals with robotic precision. One of them, a tall guy with a baseball cap, wiped sweat from his brow as he shouted orders to his teammates. Near the drive-through window, an older woman struggled to keep up with the influx of cars, her hands trembling slightly as she handed out bags. Even the manager, a middle-aged man in a crisp uniform, looked frazzled as he darted between stations, trying to maintain order. It was clear that everyone was stretched thin, barely keeping up with the demands of the lunchtime rush. Daniel felt a pang of guilt gnawing at him. From his corner office, everything had always seemed smooth and efficient. Reports showed steady profits, customer satisfaction ratings were high, and franchise expansions were underway. But here, in the thick of it all, the reality was far different. As Daniel continued to observe, he realized that Mia's muttered comment wasn't just idle venting. It was a cry for help. Something was clearly wrong with the way schedules were being managed, and it was affecting everyone. He thought about the policies he had approved in boardroom meetings, the ones designed to maximize productivity and minimize costs. Had those decisions come at the expense of his employees' well-being? The thought weighed heavily on him. When his order was finally ready, Daniel grabbed his tray and sat down at a small table by the window. He picked at his fries absent-mindedly, replaying Mia's words in his mind. For the first time in years, he felt disconnected from his own company, not as a CEO, but as a human being. Unable to ignore the nagging curiosity, Daniel decided to dig deeper. After finishing his meal, he approached the counter again, pretending to be just another curious customer. "Hey," he said casually, catching Mia's attention. "You mentioned something about the schedule earlier. What did you mean?" Mia looked at him warily, unsure whether to trust this stranger. But after a moment's hesitation, she sighed and began explaining. "It's always changing," she said, lowering her voice so only he could hear. "They give us shifts last minute, sometimes late at night or super early in the morning. It makes it impossible to plan anything. Some of us are barely getting any sleep." Her words painted a bleak picture of life on the front lines, and Daniel listened intently, his heart sinking further with each sentence. By the time Mia finished speaking, Daniel knew he had stumbled upon something important. This wasn't just about one location or one employee. It was a systemic issue that needed addressing. As he thanked her and walked away, he couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions. Guilt for not realizing this sooner, anger at the system he had helped create, and determination to make things right. For the rest of the afternoon, Daniel stayed, in the background, watching and listening. He wanted to understand not just Mia's perspective, but the experiences of everyone else working there. Each story added another layer to the problem, revealing cracks in the foundation of his empire. By the time he left the restaurant that evening, Daniel knew he had a long road ahead of him, but he also knew he was ready to face it. As the afternoon sun filtered through the windows of Burger Bliss, Daniel found himself lingering longer than he had initially planned. He couldn't shake the unease that had settled in his chest after hearing Mia's words. Her frustration wasn't an isolated complaint. It was a symptom of something much larger, something he had unknowingly allowed to fester within his company. Determined to uncover more, Daniel decided to stay and observe the rhythm of the restaurant as the lunchtime rush began to taper off. The energy inside shifted slightly but remained tense. Employees moved with mechanical precision, their faces betraying exhaustion despite their efforts to appear cheerful. Mia, in particular, caught Daniel's attention again. She seemed to be everywhere at once, taking orders, refilling drinks, cleaning tables, and even helping out in the kitchen when things got too hectic. Her movements were efficient, but there was a weariness in her eyes that no amount of training or pep talks could mask. At one point, a customer approached the counter visibly irritated. "This is taking forever," the man snapped, slamming his tray onto the counter. Mia flinched but forced a smile, apologizing profusely before rushing to fix the issue. Watching her handle the situation with such professionalism made Daniel feel both proud and deeply conflicted. Proud because she clearly cared about doing her job well, and conflicted because he realized how much pressure she was under, not just from demanding customers, but from the very structure of the company itself. Daniel noticed that other employees shared similar struggles. A young man named Marcus, who worked at the grill station, looked like he was barely holding on. His hands moved quickly, flipping burgers and assembling sandwiches, but his shoulders slumped whenever he paused for breath. Occasionally he glanced at the clock on the wall, his expression growing more anxious with each passing minute. Daniel wondered if Marcus was counting down the hours until his shift ended, or dreading what came next. Was he going straight home to rest, or did he have another obligation waiting for him? The thought made Daniel uneasy. He realized that while he had always focused on profitability and operational efficiency, he had never stopped to consider how those priorities impacted the personal lives of his workers. Later, during a brief lull in the chaos, Daniel spotted Mia sitting on a stool near the back of the counter, sipping water and rubbing her temples. It was clear she needed a moment to recharge, but even then her break was fleeting. Another employee called her name and she sprang into action without hesitation. Daniel admired her resilience but couldn't ignore the toll it was taking on her. As he watched her scurry around, he decided to strike up another conversation. This time he approached her cautiously, not wanting to seem intrusive. "Hey," he said softly, leaning against the counter. "Mind if I ask you something?" Mia looked up, surprised by the question but too polite to refuse. "Sure," she replied, her voice tinged with curiosity. "So, about the schedule thing you mentioned earlier." Daniel trailed off, giving her space to elaborate. "Oh, right." Mia sighed, setting her cup down. "It's not just me, it's everyone. They send us our shifts 2 days before we're supposed to work, and sometimes they change them last minute. If you don't accept, they'll cut your hours. But if you do, you end up working doubles or weird times that mess up your sleep. It's exhausting." Her explanation painted a grim picture of life as a fast food worker. Daniel nodded slowly, absorbing every word. "Does anyone ever talk to management about it?" he asked. "Some people try," Mia admitted. "But nothing really changes. They say they're understaffed or that it's just how things are. Honestly, I think they don't care. We're just numbers to them." The bitterness in her tone struck a chord with Daniel. He wanted to tell her that wasn't true, that he cared deeply about his employees, but he knew now wasn't the time. Instead, he thanked her for sharing and stepped back, letting her return to her duties. As he wandered toward the seating area, he replayed her words in his mind. "We're just numbers to them." The phrase haunted him. How many others felt this way? How many had resigned themselves to believing that their voices didn't matter? Eager to gather more perspectives, Daniel spent the next few hours chatting with other employees during their breaks. He introduced himself as a curious customer, interested in learning more about the restaurant industry. Most were hesitant at first, but once they realized he wasn't judging them, they opened up. One of the most revealing conversations came from Priya, a single mother who worked evenings to support her 2 children. She explained how difficult it was to balance her job with parenting responsibilities. "I love my kids more than anything," she told him. "But some weeks I barely see them. My shifts are all over the place, and finding childcare on short notice is impossible. I've thought about quitting, but where else can I go? This job pays the bills." Hearing Priya's story broke Daniel's heart. He imagined her rushing home after a long shift, hoping to spend a few precious minutes with her children before they went to bed. What kind of future was he offering someone like her? Another eye-opening conversation came from Marcus, the line cook Daniel had observed earlier. When asked about his dreams, Marcus lit up as he talked about his passion for cooking. "I want to be a chef someday," he said, his eyes shining with determination. "But between these crazy hours and barely having time to study, it feels impossible. I'm stuck." Each story added another layer to the complex web of challenges facing his employees. By the end of the day, Daniel felt overwhelmed but also inspired. These weren't just faceless workers, they were individuals with hopes, dreams, and struggles. They deserved better than what he had been providing. As he left the restaurant that evening, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about everything he had learned. The ride home was silent, save for the hum of the car engine and the whirlwind of thoughts racing through his mind. He knew he couldn't solve every problem overnight, but he vowed to start somewhere. The following morning, Daniel arrived at his office early, determined to make sense of the whirlwind of emotions and information swirling inside him. He pulled out the notebook he had carried with him the previous day and began reviewing his notes. Each page was filled with scribbled observations, quotes from employees, and reminders of the systemic issues plaguing his company. He highlighted key phrases like unpredictable schedules, lack of flexibility, and burnout. Then he started drafting a list of potential solutions. Ideas poured out of him, some practical, others ambitious, but all rooted in a newfound understanding of his workforce. By mid-morning, Daniel called an emergency meeting with his executive team. The room buzzed with confusion when he walked in carrying only his notebook instead of the usual stack of reports. Without preamble, he launched into a passionate explanation of his undercover experience. "I spent yesterday at one of our busiest locations," he began, pacing back and forth. "And let me tell you, it opened my eyes to things I should have seen long ago." He recounted stories from Mia, Priya, and Marcus, emphasizing the human cost of the policies they had implemented. "We've been so focused on profits and efficiency that we've forgotten about the people making this company run," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. "That stops now." His team listened in stunned silence as Daniel outlined his plan. First, they would overhaul the scheduling system, ensuring employees received their shifts at least 2 weeks in advance. Second, they would introduce flexible options, allowing workers to swap shifts or request specific hours based on their needs. Finally, they would launch a program to support employees pursuing education or career development, providing resources like tuition assistance and mentorship opportunities. The room erupted into discussion as executives debated the feasibility of these changes. But Daniel remained firm. "If we don't take care of our people," he said, "we won't have a company worth running." Over the next few weeks, Daniel threw himself into implementing the new initiatives. He visited multiple locations, explaining the changes to managers and employees alike. To his relief, the response was overwhelmingly positive. Back at Burger Bliss, Mia noticed the difference, almost immediately. For the first time in months, she received her schedule weeks in advance, giving her the stability she desperately needed. Priya was able to arrange consistent childcare, allowing her to spend more time with her children. And Marcus enrolled in a local culinary course, reigniting his dream of becoming a chef. Word of the changes spread quickly, boosting morale across the company. Customers noticed the improvement too. The smiles behind the counter seemed genuine, the service faster and friendlier. Daniel couldn't help but feel a sense of pride as he watched his vision come to life. But more importantly, he felt connected to his company in a way he never had before. No longer was Burger Bliss just a brand or a business. It was a community, built on trust, empathy, and shared goals. And as Daniel reflected on his journey, he realized that sometimes the most valuable insights come not from data or reports, but from simply listening to the people who matter most. The days following Daniel's undercover experience at Burger Bliss were a whirlwind of activity. He had returned to his office with a renewed sense of purpose, determined to transform the way his company operated. The stories he had heard from Mia, Priya, Marcus, and others weighed heavily on his mind, serving as a constant reminder of the responsibility he carried as CEO. It wasn't just about profits anymore. It was about people. For years, Daniel had focused on growth, expansion, and efficiency, but now he realized that these metrics meant little if they came at the expense of his employees' well-being. As he sat in his chair, staring out at the city skyline, he felt a mix of emotions: guilt for not seeing the cracks sooner, determination to make things right, and hope that his efforts would create lasting change. Daniel decided to take a hands-on approach to implementing the changes he had proposed during the executive meeting. He knew that simply issuing directives wouldn't be enough. He needed to ensure that every level of management understood the importance of what they were doing. So he began visiting multiple locations across the city, meeting with managers and staff to explain the new initiatives. At each stop, he shared his own experience of working undercover, emphasizing how much he had learned by stepping into their shoes. "I saw firsthand how hard you all work," he said during one such visit. "And I realized that we haven't been giving you the support you deserve. That's going to change." His words resonated deeply with many employees. For Mia, who had unknowingly sparked this transformation with her offhand comment, the impact was immediate. She received her schedule 2 weeks in advance, allowing her to plan her days without the stress of last-minute changes. For the first time in months, she felt like she had control over her life again. Gone were the frantic calls to babysitters or the late-night shifts that left her too exhausted to function the next day. Instead, she found herself looking forward to work, knowing that her efforts were finally being recognized and appreciated. Her interactions with customers became warmer and more genuine, reflecting the renewed energy she brought to her role. Priya, too, noticed a significant improvement in her daily routine. With a predictable schedule, she was able to arrange consistent childcare for her children, giving her peace of mind while she worked. She no longer had to worry about scrambling to find someone to watch them at the last minute, or missing important moments in their lives. On her days off, she spent quality time with her kids, reading bedtime stories and helping them with homework. These small moments meant the world to her, and she couldn't help but feel grateful for the changes Daniel had introduced. One evening, after finishing her shift, Priya approached her manager and thanked him for the new policies. "It's made such a big difference," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "I don't think I can ever repay Mr. Harper for this." Marcus, meanwhile, was thrilled to discover that the company was offering tuition assistance and mentorship programs for employees pursuing education. He had always dreamed of becoming a chef, but the demands of his job had made it nearly impossible to attend culinary school. Now, with flexible scheduling and financial support, he enrolled in a local program, eager to chase his passion. Every day after his shift, he headed straight to class, where he learned new techniques and honed his skills. The combination of practical experience at Burger Bliss and formal training in the classroom gave him confidence in his abilities. When Daniel visited the location a few weeks later, Marcus proudly showed him a dish he had prepared during his coursework. "This is amazing," Daniel said, genuinely impressed. "You're going places, Marcus. I can see it." As word of the changes spread throughout the company, morale skyrocketed. Employees who had once felt undervalued and overworked now felt seen and appreciated. They began taking pride in their work, knowing that their contributions mattered. Customers noticed the difference too. The service was faster, friendlier, and more personalized. Lines moved more smoothly, orders were accurate, and smiles seemed to come naturally rather than forced. The atmosphere inside each restaurant shifted from chaotic and stressful to calm and collaborative. Even the managers, who had initially been skeptical about the feasibility of the new policies, admitted that the improvements were undeniable. Productivity hadn't suffered. In fact, it had increased. Daniel didn't stop there. He wanted to ensure that the changes weren't just temporary fixes but long-term solutions. To achieve this, he established a feedback system where employees could share their thoughts and concerns anonymously. Every month, he reviewed the submissions personally, looking for patterns or areas that still needed attention. He also held town hall meetings, inviting workers from various locations to discuss their experiences and suggest further improvements. These gatherings fostered a sense of community within the company, breaking down barriers between executives, managers, and frontline staff. For many employees, it was the first time they felt truly heard. One particularly memorable town hall took place at the same Burger Bliss location where Daniel had gone undercover. Dozens of employees gathered in the dining area, seated around tables decorated with red and yellow balloons. Daniel stood at the front, microphone in hand, ready to listen. When it was Mia's turn to speak, she hesitated for a moment before standing up. "When I first started here, I thought it was just another dead-end job," she began, her voice steady but emotional. "But now I see that it doesn't have to be. Thanks to the changes you've made, I actually enjoy coming to work. And for that, I'm really grateful." Her words earned applause from the crowd, and Daniel couldn't help but smile. It was moments like these that reminded him why he had embarked on this journey in the first place. Despite the progress, Daniel knew there was still work to be done. Not every issue could be solved overnight, and some challenges required ongoing effort and adaptation. For example, while the new scheduling system had alleviated much of the stress, there were still occasional hiccups when unexpected absences occurred. To address this, Daniel implemented a backup plan, ensuring that employees could request coverage through an internal app. Additionally, he expanded the mentorship program to include career development workshops, teaching workers valuable skills. like resume building and interview preparation. His goal was to empower them to grow, whether they stayed with Burger Bliss or pursued opportunities elsewhere. Outside of work, Daniel found himself reflecting on the lessons he had learned. Going undercover had been an eye-opening experience, one that forced him to confront uncomfortable truths about his leadership style. In the past, he had relied heavily on data and reports, believing that numbers told the full story. But now, he understood that true success couldn't be measured in spreadsheets alone. It was reflected in the smiles of satisfied employees and the loyalty of happy customers. This realization inspired him to adopt a more empathetic approach to decision-making, prioritizing human connection over cold calculations. Over time, the ripple effects of Daniel's actions extended beyond Burger Bliss. Other companies in the Cashier fast food industry took notice of the positive changes and began reevaluating their own practices. Industry publications praised Daniel for his bold move, calling him a pioneer in workplace reform. Social media buzzed with stories from Burger Bliss employees, sharing how the new policies had transformed their lives. Some even tagged Daniel in posts, thanking him publicly for his efforts. Reading these messages filled him with a deep sense of fulfillment, reinforcing his belief that businesses could and should be forces for good. Looking back on his journey, Daniel felt a profound sense of gratitude. What had started as a simple experiment had turned into a transformative experience, not just for his company, but for him personally. He had discovered a side of leadership he hadn't known existed, one rooted in empathy, humility, and a genuine desire to make a difference. And while he knew there would always be challenges ahead, he faced them with optimism, knowing that he had built a foundation of trust and respect. As he drove home one evening, the city lights twinkling in the distance, Daniel allowed himself a moment of quiet satisfaction. He had set out to understand his business from the ground up, and in doing so, he had uncovered something far greater: the power of listening, learning, and leading with heart. As weeks turned into months, the changes Daniel had implemented at Burger Bliss continued to take root, spreading like ripples across a pond. The initial excitement among employees showed no signs of fading. Instead, it grew stronger with each passing day. For many, the improvements weren't just about better schedules or access to resources. They represented a shift in how they viewed their jobs and themselves. It was as though a weight had been lifted, allowing them to breathe easier and dream bigger. Daniel noticed this transformation during his visits to various locations. Employees greeted him warmly now, not out of obligation, but because they genuinely appreciated what he had done for them. They shared stories of personal growth, new opportunities, and renewed hope for the future. Mia, who had once muttered her frustration under her breath, became one of the most vocal advocates for the changes. She embraced her role at Burger Bliss with newfound enthusiasm, often mentoring newer employees and encouraging them to speak up if they encountered problems. Her confidence grew so much that she even applied for a supervisory position when it opened up. To her delight, she got the job. Standing behind the counter on her first day as a shift leader, Mia felt a sense of pride she hadn't experienced before. She realized that her hard work and dedication were finally being rewarded, not just with a promotion but with respect and recognition. When Daniel visited the location a few weeks later, he congratulated her personally. "You've come a long way," he said with a smile. "I'm proud of you." Mia beamed, feeling grateful for the chance to prove herself. Priya's life also underwent a remarkable transformation. With a stable schedule and consistent childcare arrangements, she found herself able to focus more on her children and less on the stress of unpredictable work hours. Her daughter, Annika, started excelling in school, thanks in part to Priya's ability to help her with homework every evening. On weekends, they went to the park together, laughing and playing without the looming worry of an early morning shift the next day. One evening, as Priya tucked Annika into bed, her daughter looked up at her and said, "Mommy, I love spending time with you." Those simple words brought tears to Priya's eyes. She realized that the changes at Burger Bliss weren't just improving her life, they were shaping her children's lives too. For Marcus, the journey was equally transformative. Enrolling in culinary school had reignited his passion for cooking, and he quickly became one of the top students in his class. His instructors praised his creativity and attention to detail, qualities he had honed while working at Burger Bliss. During his shifts, Marcus experimented with new recipes, incorporating techniques he had learned in school. Customers began noticing the subtle upgrades in flavor and presentation, often complimenting the food and asking who was responsible. When Marcus revealed himself as the mastermind behind the dishes, he received nods of approval and encouragement from coworkers and patrons alike. Encouraged by this support, he started dreaming bigger, perhaps opening his own restaurant someday. For now, though, he was content knowing that his dream was within reach. The positive changes extended beyond individual employees, affecting the entire culture of the company. Managers, inspired by Daniel's example, adopted a more collaborative leadership style. Instead of issuing orders from above, they worked alongside their teams, rolling up their sleeves and pitching in whenever needed. This shift created a sense of unity and camaraderie that hadn't existed before. Employees felt valued and respected, which translated into higher engagement and productivity. Even customers noticed the difference. Lines moved faster, orders were more accurate, and interactions were friendlier. Word-of-mouth praise spread quickly, drawing in new patrons and boosting sales. For the first time in years, Burger Bliss wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Daniel took great satisfaction in seeing his vision come to life, but he didn't rest on his laurels. He knew that maintaining momentum required constant effort and vigilance. To ensure the new policies remained effective, he established regular check-ins with managers and employees, soliciting feedback and addressing concerns promptly. He also introduced quarterly reviews, where teams could reflect on their progress and identify areas for improvement. These sessions fostered open communication and accountability, reinforcing the idea that everyone's voice mattered. Daniel made it a point to attend as many of these meetings as possible, eager to stay connected to the people driving the company forward. One such meeting took place at a suburban Burger Bliss location known for its tight-knit team. The atmosphere was lively yet focused as employees gathered around a table laden with snacks and drinks. Each person took turns sharing their thoughts, highlighting both successes and challenges. One employee, a young man named Jake, spoke about the difficulty of balancing work with college classes. While the flexible scheduling helped, he admitted that some days still felt overwhelming. Daniel listened intently, nodding in understanding. After the meeting, he pulled Jake aside and offered additional support, including reduced hours during exam periods and access to tutoring services provided by the company. Jake left the conversation feeling supported and motivated to keep pushing forward. Beyond internal initiatives, Daniel sought ways to extend Burger Bliss's impact beyond its walls. Inspired by the success of the mentorship program, he launched a community outreach initiative aimed at helping underserved youth gain valuable skills through internships and workshops. Partnering with local schools and nonprofit organizations, Burger Bliss provided hands-on training in areas like customer service, teamwork, and financial literacy. Many participants went on to secure permanent positions within the company, creating pathways to economic stability for themselves and their families. The program quickly gained traction, earning praise from community leaders and media outlets alike. Daniel saw it as an opportunity to give back, a way to show gratitude for the privilege he had enjoyed throughout his career. As the company flourished, Daniel found himself reflecting on the lessons he had learned along the way. Going undercover had taught him humility, forcing him to confront uncomfortable truths about his leadership style and the systemic issues plaguing his business. But it had also shown him the power of empathy and connection. By stepping outside his comfort zone and listening to those on the front lines, he had uncovered solutions that data and reports alone could never have revealed. This realization reshaped his approach to decision-making, leading him to prioritize human needs over numbers. He understood now that true leadership wasn't about wielding authority, it was about serving others and empowering them to succeed. Despite the accolades and recognition, Daniel remained grounded. He credited the success of the changes to the collective efforts of his team, emphasizing that none of it would have been possible without their resilience and determination. In interviews and public appearances, he often highlighted stories of individual employees using their journeys as examples of what could be achieved when companies invested in their people. His authenticity resonated with audiences, earning him a reputation as a visionary leader committed to making a difference. Outside of work, Daniel's perspective on life shifted as well. He spent more time volunteering and engaging with causes close to his heart, finding joy in giving back to the community. He also reconnected with old friends and family members, realizing that building meaningful relationships was just as important as professional achievements. At home, he kept a framed photo of the Burger Bliss team on his desk, a reminder of the incredible individuals who had inspired him to become a better leader and a better person. Looking ahead, Daniel envisioned a future where businesses prioritized purpose alongside profit. He dreamed of a world where companies recognized their responsibility to uplift and empower their employees, fostering environments where everyone could thrive. While he knew there would always be challenges to overcome, he faced them with optimism, confident in the knowledge that he had laid a strong foundation. As he prepared for another day at the office, Daniel allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought about Mia, Priya, Marcus, and countless others whose lives had been touched by the changes he had set in motion. Their stories reminded him why he had embarked on this journey, to create a workplace where people felt valued, supported, and inspired to chase their dreams. And in doing so, he had discovered something far greater: the profound impact of leading with heart. As the months rolled by, Burger Bliss continued to evolve under Daniel's leadership. The changes he had implemented weren't just surface-level fixes, they were deep-rooted transformations that reshaped the very fabric of the company. Employees no longer saw themselves as mere cogs in a machine. They felt like valued members of a community working together toward a shared goal. This shift in mindset wasn't accidental. It was the result of intentional efforts to build trust, foster collaboration, and prioritize human connection. For Daniel, watching this transformation unfold was both humbling and exhilarating. Every success story, every smile from an employee or customer, reinforced his belief that businesses could and should be forces for good. One of the most significant developments during this period was the expansion of the mentorship program. What had started as a small initiative aimed at supporting employees pursuing education quickly grew into a comprehensive platform offering career guidance, skill-building workshops, and networking opportunities. Daniel partnered with local colleges, vocational schools, and industry experts to provide high-quality resources for participants. The program became so popular that even senior managers began volunteering their time to mentor junior staff, creating a culture of learning and growth across all levels of the organization. Employees who once doubted their potential now found themselves dreaming bigger than ever before. Take Jake, for example, the young man who had struggled to balance work and college. With reduced hours during exam periods and access to tutoring services, he managed to excel academically while still contributing to the team at Burger Bliss. His hard work paid off when he graduated at the top of his class, earning a degree in business management. During the graduation ceremony, Daniel surprised him by showing up to congratulate him in person. "You've earned this," Daniel said, shaking Jake's hand warmly. "I'm proud of you." Overwhelmed with emotion, Jake thanked Daniel for believing in him and giving him the tools to succeed. He later accepted a full-time managerial position at Burger Bliss, eager to pay forward the support he had received. The success stories didn't stop there. Priya, whose life had been transformed by predictable scheduling and financial stability, decided to take her ambitions a step further. She enrolled in a part-time marketing course offered through the company's partnership with a local university. Her natural creativity and strategic thinking made her a standout student, and she soon began applying her newfound skills to improve promotional campaigns at Burger Bliss. When the marketing department noticed her talent, they invited her to join their team as a junior coordinator. It was a dream come true for Priya, who had always wanted to explore creative fields but never thought it possible. Now, she spent her days designing eye-catching advertisements and brainstorming innovative ideas to attract new customers. Her children beamed with pride whenever they saw her work displayed in stores or online. Meanwhile, Marcus's culinary journey reached new heights. After graduating from culinary school, he pitched an idea to Daniel: revamp Burger Bliss's menu to include healthier and more diverse options. Drawing inspiration from global cuisines, Marcus proposed dishes that would appeal to a wider audience without compromising the chain's signature flavors. Intrigued by the concept, Daniel gave him the green light to develop prototypes. Marcus worked tirelessly alongside the kitchen staff, testing recipes and gathering feedback from customers. The final menu update featured items like a Mediterranean-inspired falafel wrap, a Korean-style bulgogi burger, and a vegan quinoa bowl. These additions proved wildly popular, attracting foodies and health-conscious diners alike. Marcus's innovation not only boosted sales, but also positioned Burger Bliss as a forward-thinking brand committed to meeting evolving consumer preferences. While individual achievements were celebrated, the collective impact of these changes was equally remarkable. Morale soared throughout the company, leading to lower turnover rates and higher employee retention. People who might have left for greener pastures chose to stay, drawn by the supportive environment and opportunities for advancement. Managers reported stronger teamwork and fewer conflicts, thanks to improved communication and mutual respect. Even customers noticed the difference. They described Burger Bliss as a place where they felt genuinely welcomed, whether by friendly cashiers, attentive servers, or chefs passionate about their craft. Positive reviews poured in on social media, praising everything from the delicious food to the exceptional service. Daniel took great pride in these accomplishments, but he refused to grow complacent. He understood that maintaining progress required constant vigilance and adaptability. To ensure the company stayed ahead of emerging challenges, he introduced quarterly town hall meetings where employees could voice concerns, share ideas, and celebrate milestones. These gatherings fostered transparency and accountability, allowing everyone to feel invested in the company's future. During one such meeting, a group of employees suggested implementing eco-friendly practices to reduce waste and promote sustainability. Inspired by their enthusiasm, Daniel tasked them with forming a green team to research and propose actionable solutions. Within weeks, the team unveiled initiatives like biodegradable packaging, energy-efficient equipment, and recycling programs. Customers responded enthusiastically, appreciating Burger Bliss's commitment to environmental responsibility. Beyond internal improvements, Daniel expanded the company's outreach efforts to make a broader societal impact. Building on the success of the youth internship program, he launched partnerships with shelters, job training centers, and rehabilitation facilities to provide employment opportunities for marginalized communities. These collaborations gave individuals a second chance, equipping them with skills and confidence to rebuild their lives. One such participant, a formerly incarcerated man named Carlos, credited Burger Bliss with helping him turn his life around. After completing the training program, he secured a permanent position at a nearby location, where his dedication and work ethic earned him promotions and recognition. Speaking at a community event, Carlos tearfully thanked Daniel and the entire Burger Bliss family for believing in him when no one else did. The ripple effects of these initiatives extended far beyond Burger Bliss itself. Other companies in the fast food industry began taking notice, inspired by the positive outcomes achieved through empathy-driven leadership. Industry conferences invited Daniel to speak about his experiences, eager to learn how they too could create workplaces centered on care and compassion. In interviews, Daniel emphasized that the key to success lay in listening, truly listening, to those on the front lines. Numbers can tell you a lot, he often said, but they can't capture the human element. If you want to understand what your employees need, you have to walk in their shoes. Despite the accolades and recognition, Daniel remained humble. He viewed himself not as a hero, but as someone fortunate enough to have learned valuable lessons from others. Whenever asked about the secret to his success, he pointed to the incredible individuals who had inspired him along the way: Mia, Priya, Marcus, Jake, Carlos, and countless others. Their resilience, determination, and unwavering spirit reminded him daily why he had embarked on this journey. It wasn't about personal glory or corporate accolades. It was about creating a workplace where people felt seen, heard, and valued. No, a personal level, Daniel underwent profound changes as well. His undercover experience had awakened something within him, a desire to lead with authenticity and purpose. He became more introspective, reflecting on how his actions affected those around him. Outside of work, he dedicated time to volunteering, mentoring young entrepreneurs and advocating for policies that supported workers' rights. He reconnected with old friends and family members, cherishing relationships he had neglected during his relentless pursuit of success. At home, he kept a journal filled with reflections and gratitude notes, reminding himself to stay grounded amidst the whirlwind of achievements. Looking back on his journey, Daniel felt immense gratitude for the challenges that had pushed him to grow, for the people who had trusted him enough to share their stories, and for the opportunity to make a meaningful difference. He realized that true leadership wasn't about titles or power. It was about serving others and empowering them to reach their full potential. As he prepared for another day at the office, Daniel allowed himself a moment of quiet reflection. He thought about the countless lives touched by the changes he had set in motion and smiled, knowing that his legacy wouldn't be measured in profits or market share, but in the smiles of satisfied employees and the dreams fulfilled by those he had helped along the way. As the years passed, Burger Bliss continued to flourish under Daniel's empathetic leadership. The company wasn't just surviving, it was thriving in ways that went beyond financial metrics. Its reputation as a workplace that cared deeply about its employees spread far and wide, attracting talented individuals eager to be part of something meaningful. Job applications poured in from people who wanted more than just a paycheck. They sought purpose, growth, and a sense of belonging. For Daniel, this shift validated everything he had worked so hard to achieve. It proved that when businesses prioritized their people, success followed naturally. One of the most visible signs of Burger Bliss's evolution was its growing presence in communities across the country. What had started as a single fast food chain had expanded into a network of restaurants known not only for great food, but also for making a positive impact. Each location became a hub of activity, hosting events like career fairs, health workshops, and environmental cleanup drives. Employees took immense pride in these initiatives, often volunteering their time to organize and participate. They saw themselves not just as workers, but as ambassadors of change, using their roles to uplift those around them. Customers, too, felt connected to the brand, knowing that their patronage supported efforts to improve lives and protect the planet. Mia, who had once been a weary cashier struggling to keep up with unpredictable shifts, now stood at the helm of one of the busiest Burger Bliss locations. As a manager, she embodied the values Daniel had instilled in the company: empathy, integrity, and a commitment to excellence. Her leadership style mirrored his own. She listened to her team, celebrated their successes, and addressed their concerns with compassion. Under her guidance, the restaurant consistently ranked among the top performers in customer satisfaction and employee engagement. When Daniel visited during one of his routine check-ins, Mia greeted him with a warm hug. "We couldn't have done it without you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Daniel shook his head modestly. "You're the one leading the charge now," he replied. "I'm just proud to see how far you've come." Priya's journey also reached new heights. After excelling in her role as a marketing coordinator, she was promoted to oversee regional campaigns, traveling to different locations to train teams and implement strategies. Her innovative ideas helped Burger Bliss stay ahead of trends, appealing to younger audiences while retaining loyal customers. But perhaps her greatest achievement was finding balance between her career and family life. With predictable schedules and flexible policies, she no longer missed important moments with her children. On weekends, she took them on outings, teaching them the importance of kindness, perseverance, and dreaming big. One evening, as she tucked Annika into bed, her daughter looked up and said, "Mommy, I want to be just like you when I grow up." Priya smiled, realizing that her hard work was shaping not only her own future, but also the next generation. Marcus, meanwhile, had become a household name within the culinary world. His bold menu updates earned rave reviews from critics and customers alike, cementing Burger Bliss's status as an industry innovator. Encouraged by his success, Daniel gave him the opportunity to open a standalone restaurant featuring his signature dishes. Named Flavors by Marcus, the venture quickly gained popularity, drawing food enthusiasts from all over the city. Despite his newfound fame, Marcus remained grounded, crediting Burger Bliss for giving him the platform to pursue his passion. During interviews, he often spoke about the mentorship program that had changed his life, urging other companies to invest in their employees' dreams. If someone believes in you, he would say, you can move mountains. The ripple effects of Daniel's transformation extended beyond individual success stories. Entire families benefited from the stability and opportunities provided by Burger Bliss. Single parents found reliable employment that allowed them to support their loved ones. Young adults discovered pathways to education and career advancement. Even retirees joined the workforce, contributing their wisdom and experience while staying active and engaged. These diverse voices enriched the company culture, creating a tapestry of backgrounds, perspectives, and talents. Daniel cherished this diversity, seeing it as a reflection of the broader community Burger Bliss served. Outside of the company, Daniel's influence inspired a wave of change in the fast food industry. Competitors began adopting similar practices, recognizing that treating employees well wasn't just good ethics, it was good business. Industry conferences buzzed with discussions about empathy-driven leadership, sustainable operations, and community engagement. Journalists hailed Daniel as a pioneer, profiling him in magazines and documentaries that highlighted his unconventional approach to running a corporation. Yet despite the spotlight, Daniel remained humble. He viewed himself as a catalyst rather than a savior, emphasizing that real change happened when everyone worked together. It's not about me, he often said. It's about what we can achieve when we put people first. On a personal level, Daniel's journey transformed him in profound ways. Going undercover had taught him lessons he could never have learned. In a boardroom, the value of humility, the power of listening, and the importance of leading with heart. These insights shaped not only his professional decisions but also his personal relationships. He reconnected with old friends, mended strained family ties, and formed new bonds with people from all walks of life. Volunteering became a cornerstone of his routine, whether mentoring young entrepreneurs or supporting causes close to his heart. At home, he kept a scrapbook filled with notes, photos, and mementos from his travels, reminding him of the incredible individuals who had touched his life along the way. Looking back, Daniel marveled at how much had changed since that fateful day he walked into Burger Bliss disguised as an ordinary customer. Back then, he had been searching for answers, unsure if he would find anything worth learning. What he discovered instead was a calling, a mission to create workplaces where people felt valued, empowered, and inspired to chase their dreams. It wasn't always easy. There were moments of doubt, setbacks, and tough decisions. But through it all, he stayed true to his vision, guided by the belief that businesses could be forces for good. As Daniel prepared for retirement, he reflected on the legacy he hoped to leave behind. It wasn't about the awards or accolades, it was about the countless lives touched by the changes he had set in motion. He thought about Mia, who had risen from cashier to manager, Priya, who balanced motherhood and ambition with grace, Marcus, whose culinary creations delighted diners worldwide, Jake, whose determination earned him a degree and a promising career, Carlos, who rebuilt his life after incarceration, and so many others whose stories reminded him why he had embarked on this journey. Their resilience, creativity, and unwavering spirit inspired him daily, reinforcing his faith in humanity's potential. To ensure the company's values endured long after his departure, Daniel appointed Mia as his successor. She was the perfect choice, someone who understood the struggles of frontline workers yet possessed the vision and leadership skills to guide the company forward. On the day of the announcement, Daniel gathered the entire team for a heartfelt farewell speech. When I started this journey, he began, his voice steady but emotional, I didn't know where it would lead. All I knew was that something had to change. Thanks to each and every one of you, we've built something truly special. A company that cares as much about its people as it does about its profits. That's your legacy, not mine. And I have no doubt that Mia will carry that torch with the same passion and dedication that brought us here today. The room erupted in applause as Mia stepped forward to embrace Daniel. Tears streamed down her face as she thanked him for believing in her and giving her the chance to grow. This isn't goodbye, she assured him. It's just the beginning of the next chapter for all of us. Her words resonated deeply, capturing the essence of what Burger Bliss had become, a place where dreams took flight, challenges were met with courage, and people came together to build a better future. Into the years that followed, Daniel watched proudly as Burger Bliss continued to thrive under Mia's leadership. New initiatives, partnerships, and innovations emerged, keeping the company at the forefront of the industry. Meanwhile, Daniel dedicated his time to writing, speaking, and mentoring aspiring leaders, sharing the lessons he had learned throughout his remarkable journey. His book, titled Leading with Heart, became a bestseller, inspiring readers around the world to rethink traditional notions of success and leadership. Though retired, Daniel remained deeply connected to the people and principles that had defined his career. He often visited Burger Bliss locations, chatting with employees and customers alike. Each interaction reminded him of the incredible impact one person could have when they chose to lead with empathy and purpose. As he sat in a corner booth one sunny afternoon, sipping coffee and watching the bustling activity around him, Daniel felt a profound sense of peace. He had built a legacy, not of wealth or power, but of love, trust, and hope. And in doing so, he had proven that true success wasn't measured in numbers, but in the lives touched and transformed along the way.